Welcome back to the Team Leal kitchen. It's Trudy. Today we're making lentil loaf with all the fixins. Okay, so this is a lot of ingredients and I could read them all out to you, or you could write them all down. Take a screenshot. It's a lot of ingredients, but they make a delicious loaf. The mashed potatoes and the carrots are a lot easier. Just potatoes, water, milk, butter, salt, green onions, and for my maple carrots, just carrots, oil, salt, and maple syrup. Remember, you can get all my recipes on my blog, teamleal.net. Let's get cooking. Vamos a cocinar. I prepared this meal by starting by cooking the lentils. I use 1 pound of lentils and then I split it into 3 batches. It gives me 6 cups all cooked. So I used 2 cups for this recipe. So I'm going to take my dry lentils and pop them into my Instant Pot. You can alternately also just use pre-cooked lentils if you want. And I just check to see if there's any rocks or just junk in there. And then I just cook it. Once the lentils are cooked, I separate out what I need for this recipe. Like I said, I will be using 2 cups of lentils. So I take a strainer and I put my 2 cups of lentils in the strainer because I do not want a ton of moisture in these lentils. So I just strain them over it while I start getting other stuff going, like my carrots. I take the skin off of the carrots. I don't have to, but I did. I don't even remember why. And I just shred that off. And of course you see my handy dandy chopper next to me. So you're going to simply cut the carrots into kind of thin strips so that when you put it in the chopper, it's easier to use it. Get your aggression out while you're there. You can see Diego in the background practicing his Spanish lesson. So once it's all chopped up, I just kind of separate it into a bowl and then I get to my other vegetables. I'm using the chopper for pretty much everything. So I get the onion out and then I take my mushrooms, everything I use the chopper for because it's just so fast. I get my 2 ribs of celery as well and I rinse them, cut off that top and bottom and get them into the chopper. Okay, so you're gonna notice I don't have all the ingredients I mentioned at the beginning because I messed up, but I have my carrots and onions and my mushroom and my celery. I do not have my zucchini on me because I forgot I had to add it. Get yourself a really nice pan. I love this pan. I got it for Mother's Day. That's my oil pan. Sorry, I have to empty it. Don't judge me. So you're just gonna get your pan. I use this one, it's probably too small for it, but I love it. It's purple, it brings me joy. And that's why I use this smaller, beautiful purple pan. Now that you've got your carrots and onions in there, you just put a little bit of water in there. You water saute it for about 5 minutes. And then afterwards, you'll add the celery and the mushrooms. But you want to do the carrots and onions first because they take a little bit longer. And I just do those on medium heat. Now I've added the mushrooms and the celery. And I'm just going to saute this for another 5 minutes. So I've got all the vegetables in there. And I forgot, the zucchini. But I'll get it in there in a second. So just kind of let that water saute for a little bit, about 5 minutes, and let them all soften and all the flavors come together. My goodness, it's my day for forgetting. Don't forget to put a little bit of salt into the vegetables. It'll kind of release the water. Cover it up and let it saute for 5 minutes. Time for liquid smoke. 1/8 of a teaspoon is just the right amount to give it that flavor depth that you need to make it taste like meatloaf, from my belief. Anyways, then you're just gonna mix that up and make sure that you continue to come back to your pan to mix up your veggies. Now you'll add the garlic, just 2 teaspoons or 2 cloves. You'll mix it up in there and you'll only cook it for a couple of minutes until it becomes fragrant. You'll smell it. It's delicious. This is when I remembered I forgot the zucchini. This is a beautiful zucchini out of Diego's garden. I'm so very proud of him. I was looking for him, but it was Jack behind me. It seems like everybody was in the kitchen that day. Anyways, you're gonna just chop this diced like the others. I would have used my chopper, but I had already washed it. Well, who are we kidding? Toby washed it, but I didn't want to dirty it again. I felt too guilty. Anyways, that's what a zucchini looks like. Didn't have a lot of seeds, which was kind of cool. Didn't release a lot of moisture because of that, I guess. And I did my best to use decent knife skills so that I would not cut my finger again. I'm not using decent knife skills here, and then I'm like, oh yeah, I forgot. I need to tuck, Trudy. tuck tuck. It will be a miracle if I don't cut my hand off by the end of all of these meals I cook. Anyways, here's the zucchini. You just saute it for a little bit, add a little water. I do like to keep my lid on so that the condensation drips down and it helps it kind of water saute a little bit better. Get your food processor out and you're just gonna add half a cup of oats. I use gluten-free oats because Jackson can't have any wheat. Then you'll just add all of your cooked vegetables to it. I didn't have to do mine in batches, but I did make a double-sized lentil loaf later in the week, and I did have to put that into batches. After that, you'll just add half a cup of panko, and I am using gluten-free panko. Again, we can't have gluten, and it's horrible. I wish we could have gluten. I do not eat eggs, so I use ground flax meal. I ground my own flax at home and I use it for breads and as a binder in all my food. Just 2 tablespoons of that will help bind everything together. It's also got fiber and protein, so yeah, that's awesome. Don't freak out, but I'm using the same measuring spoon for the tomato paste. I apologize. I get 2 tablespoons of tomato paste, and of course, make sure that it all gets in there. Fun hack, I actually freeze my tomato paste in these cute little molds. It's so awesome. And I just pop them out and I have these cute little molds of tomato paste and I use them in my cooking. Yay! Let's add a little more flavor. I use 1 tablespoon of dried parsley flakes, 1 tablespoon of ketchup. My children think that ketchup goes on everything. It's gross. We go through so much ketchup. Does anybody else go through so much ketchup? Let's get the star of this loaf into the food processor. Lentils, super packed with protein and fiber, and add a little bit of salt. Now that everything is inside of the processor, you'll want to turn it on. Turn it. Oh gosh, maybe I should plug in the machine. Maybe it'll work now. Well, look at that. Electricity works. Awesome. Fantastic. Okay, moving on. We are going to let that run for quite a few minutes. You don't want it super smooth. You just want a little bit of chunk and texture left over. Scrape it down often and hang out here for a sec. Once it's all done, I get some, well, not butter, but I used Crisco because Crisco is accidentally vegan and soy-free. And I just make sure that I grease the entire pan. And then I'm just gonna use a spoon and get it all in there and smooth it out to make it look nice. This is how much I got out of it. Not a full loaf, because it does rise a little bit, but that's what it looks like, and I just pop it in there and bake it. While it's baking, let's get started on our mashed potatoes. We're definitely making a full meal tonight. I chop up my mashed potatoes, or my potatoes, they're not mashed already, of course. Duh. I chop them a decently large size and boil them until they're soft. I just make sure that they are fork tender before I strain them over the sink. Now, most people would just put them in a mixer, but Toby likes his potatoes super smooth. He claims his dad makes the best mashed potatoes. So I use a ricer. You don't have to use a ricer. You can just throw it into like a bowl and use your little mixer machine. But I'm gonna show you how I use my ricer. Notice I still have the skins on my potatoes because the skins have a lot of fiber and nutrition, so I will not take them off of my potatoes, like, ever. So you rice them through by pushing it, and then I just kind of scrape the rest of it, and then you'll notice I have all these skins left over. I just pop them onto a cutting board, and I gather them all there, and just continue doing what I was doing. Now, once I've riced everything, and I've got all my skins left over on this cutting board, I go to cutting them, hopefully not cutting my finger. Then I take everything and put it into my KitchenAid mixer and start it on a pretty slow speed. This is where I'll add some of my starchy water as well as Oatly. I add half a cup of Oatly, and then I add 2 tablespoons of plant-based butter. This one's pretty good. I have a new one that's amazing though, but that's for the next video. So 2 tablespoons of that. Let that mix at medium. You'll want to scrape it every so often, and I add half a teaspoon of salt. Again, I measure my salt all the time because siempre se me pasa la mano, like I've said so many times. If you want to add more salt, go for it. It's your life, it's your blood pressure. Keep on scraping and mixing. You're gonna hang out here for a little bit until it's really smooth and to Toby's standards, this pasta's standards. Once everything is mixed up, grab your green onions. I just use scissors to chop them in there, or cut them in there, I guess would be the right words. And I mix it really, really fast. These are so yummy. Okay, let's talk bad decisions, y'all. The first topping I made for this original lentil loaf was not good. It was just ketchup and brown sugar. I was just trying to make a topping like my mom did, which I remember being ketchup, and I don't know why I didn't talk to her, ask her, but anyways, the sugar didn't make it any better, just made it sweeter, and nobody likes sweet meat, gross. Anyways, that's what it looked like when it came back. Nice, but it was not super delicious. So the next time I made it, you'll notice this loaf is much larger. I used Toby's recipe for the saucy sauce. It was so good. It was just ketchup and mustard mixed and equal parts, and then a tablespoon of maple syrup. And I did about, a little bit less than half a cup of each. And then the extra I actually saved. So you just get that topping on there. I know it's yellow, it's kind of weird flavor, or not flavor. The flavor was delicious, you guys. It's the color that was weird. And you just pop that into the oven at 400 degrees. My oven is in Celsius. I can't explain it. While the loaf is in the oven, you're going to get your carrots ready. So I didn't peel these. I just make them into like these chunks that are cut on the bias, like on the diagonal. And I put them on parchment paper on a cookie sheet. All right. And so all I do is add a little bit of oil. I almost dropped this entirely new bottle of oil. Oh my gosh, Trudy. And I just add a little bit of salt. I'll leave the maple syrup for later. I get them into the oven and I bake them at that 400 degrees for about 15 minutes. And then after that 15 minutes is up, I add maple syrup. You'll see like the drops of it all over there. I put 2 tablespoons, and I needed more carrots, but this is what we had. And that's it. You've got a full dinner for your family. Maple glazed carrots, mashed potatoes, and lentil loaf. So yummy. And here is Sophie's plate from when we made the bigger loaf. And this is my plate from when we had the smaller loaf. I hope your family enjoys it. Buen provecho.